What if I told you that lurking inside your very own DNA is the ghost of another human species? It sounds like science fiction, but it's a scientific fact. Recent discoveries have revealed that for many of us, up to 2% of our genes don't come from our direct Homo sapiens ancestors. Instead, they belong to the Neanderthals, our mysterious long-lost cousins who disappeared from the face of the earth tens of thousands of years ago. We've always been told they went extinct, but what if they didn't, not completely? The real questions are, where did these enigmatic people truly come from? And why, after all this time, do they still live on within us today? For centuries, Neanderthals have been unfairly painted as primitive, hunched-over brutes, simple-minded cave dwellers who were simply outcompeted and doomed to extinction by our cleverer ancestors. But in the last 2 decades, this outdated caricature has been completely shattered. Thanks to the incredible power of ancient DNA analysis, we're rewriting their story. From tiny, unassuming bone fragments found in the frozen caves of Siberia to teeth preserved for millennia in the rocky landscapes of Spain, we are finally decoding the epic saga of their true origins. The picture emerging is not of a failed species, but of a complex and resilient people whose legacy is woven directly into our own genetic code. For the longest time, the origin of Neanderthals was one of paleoanthropology's greatest mysteries. Scientists wrestled with the question, were they just an evolutionary dead end, a side branch on the human family tree that led nowhere? Or were they part of something much, much bigger, a hidden parallel branch of humanity? For decades, all we had to go on were fossils, and while they told a fascinating story, it was an incomplete one. Their robust skeletons, strong jaws, characteristically thick skulls, and wide noses painted a vivid picture of a people perfectly adapted for survival in the harsh, unforgiving climate of Ice Age Europe. They were clearly tough survivors, but the crucial question of where they came from remained frustratingly unclear. Were they a European invention, or did their roots lie elsewhere? The trail was cold. That is, until researchers managed to do the impossible. From a tiny 40,000-year-old bone fragment discovered in Vindija Cave in Croatia, they successfully extracted ancient Neanderthal DNA. What they discovered within that genetic code didn't just add a new chapter to human history, it forced us to tear up the old book and start over. When scientists finally sequenced the Neanderthal genome for the first time, the scientific community held its breath. Many expected to find a genetic blueprint that was primitive, clearly distinct and vastly different from our own. But what they found was nothing short of astonishing. The Neanderthal genome was, in fact, 99.7% identical to that of modern humans. We were practically genetic twins. But that wasn't even the most shocking revelation. As they compared this ancient DNA to the genomes of people alive today, they found clear, undeniable evidence of interbreeding. Our direct Homo sapiens ancestors and Neanderthals hadn't just coexisted, they had met, mingled, and had children together. This means that parts of who you are, your hair color, your skin tone, or even how your immune system responds to certain diseases, could be a direct inheritance from a Neanderthal ancestor who lived over 50,000 years ago. But the story doesn't stop there. Further analysis of DNA from another cave in Denisova, Siberia, revealed an entirely unexpected plot twist. This DNA belonged to yet another distinct group of ancient humans, now known as the Denisovans. And when scientists looked closer, they found that Neanderthals had also interbred with them. The human family tree wasn't a neat branching diagram, it was a tangled, interconnected web, suggesting that the origins of Neanderthals were far more complex and cosmopolitan than anyone had ever imagined. And here is where the story takes a truly strange and mind-bending turn. The oldest Neanderthal DNA ever recovered, extracted from fossils in Spain's Cima de los Huesos cave, or the Pit of Bones, is over 430,000 years old. Logically, you would expect this ancient genetic material to look like an early ancestral version of the later European Neanderthals, but it doesn't. Instead, it carries mitochondrial DNA that is surprisingly closer to the Denisovans, who were thought to have lived thousands of miles away in Asia. This completely upends the traditional theory that Neanderthals simply evolved in isolation in Europe. It suggests a far more dynamic and complicated past, one where multiple groups of ancient humans were migrating out of Africa or Asia in successive waves, mixing and merging along the way. Perhaps the group we call Neanderthals didn't emerge from a single lineage, but from a much older hybrid population. Our ancestors didn't just arrive and replace them, we merged with them. Every human born today with non-African ancestry carries the echoes of that ancient union. It is definitive proof that the Neanderthals never truly vanished. They became part of us. So, when we look back at the Neanderthals, we should not see them as failures of evolution. They were survivors. They were innovators who crafted complex tools. They were artists who painted on cave walls. They were caretakers who looked after the sick and the elderly and buried their dead with care. Their DNA, which persists in our own cells, is not some useless leftover relic of a bygone era. It's a living, breathing part of our modern human identity. It's a profound reminder that we are the sum of many ancient stories, a mosaic of different peoples and journeys. And some of those stories we are only just now beginning to understand. The ghost in our genes has finally been given a voice, and it's telling us that the story of what it means to be human is far richer and more interconnected than we ever knew. So, the next time you happen to look in the mirror, take a moment and remember, you're not just looking at a Homo sapien. You're looking at a descendant of a story that spans hundreds of thousands of years. You're part Neanderthal. Tell me what you think in the comments. Do you believe Neanderthals were more human than we've ever given them credit for? I'd love to hear your thoughts. And if you want to keep uncovering the hidden past that lies within us all, make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell, because the story of us has only just begun. Thanks for watching.